You've heard this morning a lot of focus on growth in our company. In fact, I would argue that it's a feature of virtually every conversation we have with Michael and Bill, and probably will be so going forward. There's a lot of ways to grow the company, but fundamentally, if you reduce it to the most essential issue, it's that we have to get more of our products into the patients who need them. Most of you probably know that we market lead in virtually everything that we do at Medtronic. What maybe many of you don't know is that we actually have very low penetrations in all these markets. And by penetration, I mean actually getting access to the patients. So if you rounded up the pantheon of the top 100 products at Medtronic and asked this question, what is the penetration of these products? How much of these markets we own actually are we actually addressing? On average, I think if you sort of summed it and averaged it out, it'd be around 20%, meaning that 1 in 5 patients who could benefit from one of these products actually gets it. 1 in 5. So what's the problem? Where is the access issue here? If we know, we've proven and have good data that 1 in 5 patients would benefit, what about the other 4? Why aren't they getting them? And there's a lot of reasons. Some of them may be that there's actually a regulatory hurdle that in certain countries, for example, including the United States, there are products that just we can't have here. There's plenty of products that we sell in Europe that aren't sold in the United States because patients in the US have no access to these because of regulatory hurdles. If there has been regulatory approval, there's oftentimes reimbursement hurdles, meaning that, yes, the product's been approved, but nobody wants to pay for it. Or certain groups will pay for it and not others. So depending on what healthcare system you may be in a country or within the country in a different healthcare system, there may be no reimbursement policy for it. And finally, another important hurdle is education, meaning either patients really don't understand the value of the product and therefore aren't offering it to patients, or patients don't really get it and don't understand how they might benefit. So we, of course, address all these issues. We have very good people working on regulatory. That's Susan, Dr. Alpert's affair. We have great people working in Washington on various issues about reimbursement. We have them working at the state level. And of course, we have this vast marketing organization, Medtronic, that works on trying to educate physicians particularly, and at times patients, on the value of the products that we have that should improve their lives. That whole process fundamentally is suspect because we are a commercial entity. And so people can look at our marketing of devices and say, well, of course they're going to market these devices. They have something to gain from it. They're in commerce. And of course, Earl, in his mission, said we have a right to a fair profit. But not everyone understands that. Many people think that medicine really should be free. It's a right. And I'm not going to get into this today, but suffice to say that when we go out and market our things, there are some people who think, geez, of course they're marketing these things. They stand to gain from it. So there could be no stronger advocacy for our products than patients who only have one thing to gain, which is a better life. And if they feel strongly enough about it and they aren't working in our quarter, this becomes, I think, the most single powerful way that we can increase access to patients. And the problem is that it takes a very special person to do this. And today, we're going to celebrate 2 people who have done this in extremely unique ways, in very different ways. And so it's really my privilege to do this. We have talked about this for a long time. Art and I, is really kind of Art's creation, is that we ought to really be acknowledging some of these people out there who are trying to accelerate access without being part of our marketing department, not being part of reimbursement, not being part of our regulatory process, and simply doing it because it's right. And they want to not only have it for themselves, but for other people. So across the Atlantic Ocean, near the Arctic Circle in Trondheim, Norway, along comes Ronnie Reitan. So Ronnie, as a young man, develops type 1 diabetes and copes with this over the next couple decades. Ultimately gets a pump, and it's a Desatronic made by Roche pump. And is Ronnie, where are you, Ronnie? Where's Ronnie? Is he in the back? There he is. So Ronnie told me last night that it was a terrible pump. I said, don't say that publicly. And Bill did say, go ahead, tell him. Physician, commercial, whatever. So Ronnie has a Desatronic pump, and a couple years ago, our diabetes business releases into the Nordic regions the Paradigm 722. And for those of you who don't know that product, this is a very cool little pump that actually communicates with the sensor, just like your pancreas communicates with sensors for glucose. So the 722 is really the Cadillac, I think, Chris, of our diabetes business, and this is the pump that communicates with sensors and allows the patient to really be involved in tight control of their glucose. Ronnie reads about this on the internet and says, I ought to have one of these things, right? Right? Problem is that the people in Norway say, nice idea, we're not paying for it. So most patients who seek these kind of things are told, no, just accept it. Doctor knows best, the healthcare system knows best. They're not willing to take it on. Not Ronnie Reitan. Ronnie decides that what he ought to do is go to the local media and complain about this, which he does, and he eventually elevates this to national media in Norway. And then, of course, as is the wont of politicians who like media attention, they say, we might as well get on this bandwagon with Ronnie. And so Ronnie ultimately gets his pump, but he doesn't stop there. That's what most people would do. But he says, you know, this isn't just for me. This is for all people struggling with diabetes. And everyone in Norway ought to have rights to this. And so he has a campaign going on, a national media campaign. He's got all the politicians, the Minister of Health lined up with his quest to get this pump approved for the 22,000 people in Norway who should benefit. So, Ron, I'd like you to come up and accept an award from Medtronic, and basically we'll raise the ceilings here a few feet to let you get up here, because this is an enormous effort, and I want to thank you on behalf of all people with diabetes for what you're doing. Ronnie's here for the first time in America. He didn't go to the state fair, though, he tells me.
No.
Lucky you. So he did go to with his mother, Bodil, who I think is here and maybe in the back of the room. Bodil, if you just want to stand up. Also first time in America. And we've asked Ronnie just to say a few words maybe about what in the world he was thinking about. So thank you for coming here, speaking in English. Good. Go ahead.
Can I stand? Yeah. Before I started with this insulin pump, Paragon real-time system called as PRT, my life was difficult. I was disabled and depended on painkillers each day. When I woke up each morning, I was tired and complaining about pains and such things and wondered if I just go to sleep again. But when I started with the PRT system, my life changed for the better. I could go out with my friends and manage more in a day without any painkillers. My HbA1c dropped from 9.2 to 6.2 in 1 year. And I reduced my insulin with 50% each day. I started fighting for other patients who didn't have this therapy, and became the government wouldn't pay for this therapy. I reached out for the media and covered up stories that highlighted the media for a long time, and not only for me but for other patients. The 20th of November 2006, the United Nations approved a resolution about diabetes that stated that diabetes is a threat to the world's health. And they said that all countries shall give treatment, care, and follow-up about diabetes. This is the first time a non-contagious illness receives this recognition from the UN. And that's why I thought that my work to change the Norwegian government's system to give out this equipment. The diabetes treatment it's very good in Norway, but something must be changed that everyone shall have this system. In October, the government and the legislators will give the advocacy for this funding, and they will start a group that will look up about diabetes. And I've been asked to talk for the diabetes there. I believe that if we can successfully drive change in Norway, this model could be disciplined out in the world. Today, I get nearly 10 calls each day from doctors, nurses, and patients who ask me about diabetes and what this pump has done for my life. I have my mother and Line Merete Ossenstad here with me today. And I want to say thank you for them to follow me here. And I would also like to recognize the entire Medtronic Norway and Swedish teams with diabetes. And a special thanks to Alex Weltlich in Turlow, who nominated me for this award. Thank you, Medtronic, for this special honor.
So, Ronnie, we have a little memento of this day that we'd like you to take back to Norway, but I want to assure you that your picture will be prominently displayed in our Hall of Fame out here, and every day people will be able to recognize and be grateful for what you've done. So thank you very much. Yeah.
Thank you.
That's good. So while Ronnie's working out there near the Arctic Circle in Norway, just down south here in Iowa, are two guys farming. There's a little farm down there, 1,700 acres. It's managed by two brothers, and their farm is called Two Guys Farming. And today we have guy number 2, who has been working on patient advocacy in a completely different way, and I think one that you hopefully will recognize is remarkable in every sense of that word. So Jeff Ryan's in the back of the room. He'll have him up here in a second, and he has perhaps the most interesting logo on his business card ever about Two Guys Farming, which is that this guy, as you will see, is near genius. He's quite smart and could have been a neurosurgeon, but as his card says, we farm because they're already doing neurosurgery at the Mayo Clinic. Sort of, anyway. Jeff is very well known to the neuro group here, and I think many of us have known him. I've certainly been aware of him for the 6 years I've been here. He runs a large farm, and he may want to tell you what they farm down there. We got the full story last night, but he runs combine harvesters, does a lot of interesting things, and he has been plagued by, and crippled, if you will, by benign, so-called benign. Benign is when someone else has it, Jeff, right? So-called benign essential tremor, which is a distant cousin to Parkinson's disease, and it can be absolutely crippling so that you can't actually hold things, can't write, and it's a horrible, horrible neuro illness. 9 years ago, Jeff got bilateral neurostimulators, Activa, and I would argue lives a more normal life than I do, which may not be saying much, Jeff, but and again, in some people who speak Hebrew could say, Dayenu, it's enough. He could have said, I got my stimulators, and nothing more needs to be done, but not Jeff Ryan. Jeff said, you know, this thing has so fundamentally changed my life that other people should be getting this. This changes your life in interesting ways. In fact, if anyone was at the chairman's briefing when someone sought medical advice from Bill Hawkins and he dodged it, Jeff Ryan sought her out. And this is typical of Jeff Ryan. He found her and said, look, let me talk to you about your essential tremor and what you can and cannot do. He has done this tirelessly throughout the country, and with dozens and dozens of people, they have contacted him and said, we hear that you had this, people know about you, tell me about it, and he usually will talk them through it, and what he does that is just remarkable is that he generally promises them if they have it that he'll be there, wherever they are. And so when they wake up from their neurosurgery, there's Jeff Ryan holding their steady hand and saying, I told you so. I don't know too many people who would do this. And so he's got a busy farm. The crops are growing, got to be harvested. But Jeff manages to contact these people wherever they are, goes out to see them. And so, again, you've heard about Ronnie and how he's worked the politicians, worked the system. Jeff's taking it at a grassroots level and working the people. And again, Jeff, I'd like you to come up here and, on the behalf of everyone at Medtronic, take the praise that you deserve for this remarkable gift and giving that you do week in, week out. So thank you very much. You're a hero, an absolute hero. Thank you.
Thank you for this award and for recognizing the efforts of people like Ronnie and me. I first learned about Activa in the summer of 1997 when a patient shared his story on the front page of the Des Moines Register. That story led me to surgery a few months later, and it also led me to invite TV cameras into surgery for one of those operations that Steve told you about. I could share my story with people that way so that they could benefit just like I have. I wanted someone else to see what takes place and allay some of their fears that they have prior to surgery. I want to give special thanks to Heather King and the staff at KWWL TV for the great job that they did with my story that I've shared with people ever since then. In 1998, when I sent Bill George a letter to let him know how great my device was working, I could tell from his response how powerful that was and what it means to the people at Medtronic. That's why I've shared similar stories about other patients with Art Collins and with Bill in the past. And it's important for all of you to know how much your work means. I want to say a special thanks to Cynthia Hotvet for introducing me to so many people over the years and for passing along one of those first stories to Art, which will be a tradition that will continue with you, Bill. If you leave here with nothing else today, remember this. No matter what you do at Medtronic, your job is not about numbers, it's about individuals. Your job is about creating one of those life-changing moments for one person and doing it again and again. One person, one moment. That's what Medtronic is about. I know what that moment is like myself, and that's why I'm here today. I want to thank everyone at Medtronic for making that moment possible for me. And I especially want to thank Lynn Otten and her team in Activa for their work to help me and so many others restore our lives. I love this new life, Lynn, and it's a full one because of you. Thank you very much for this award.